organizing this event and also for inviting me to speak. I would say I everything you've been underlaying and fighting for. I'm grateful to the RESHAPE for the opportunity to address you today. I was asked to give some thoughts on how we can build a just, free, prosperous, democratic, and equitable world for generations to come. So here are my thoughts. There is one almost universal truth that we all want our children to have a better life than us. History has shown that more often than not, the passing of time creates a world that is freer and fairer, a world with greater wealth and better health. But there are growing concerns that this generation to generation progress has stalled. If we still believe in building that better world to pass on to our children, then we need to build it together. We cannot sit back and assume that human rights, democracy, free trade, and free speech will continue to thrive simply because they exist. We must understand that progress already achieved must be defended and pushed forward every day. We all have to be the progress that we want to see. We cannot live in a world of one. We are a world of many. In these kinds of debates, there are many commentators who make their living selling doom and gloom. And while the stakes may be high, I'm not here to convince you that all is lost. They say the West is in decline. Democracy is being overrun by autocracy, that the gap between rich and poor will only grow. But I refuse to subscribe to this point of view. Instead, I believe that our world is at an inflection point, one where the victory of fairness and goodness over inequality and oppression is still the end point I see ahead of us. We can allow the negativity to overcome us, for autocrats to rule us, and injustice to silence us. Or we can choose to unite. After all, what is the alternative? My lifetime is a story of seeking a better life, and then of doing my very best to pay it forward. I was born in Burkina Faso in West Africa, a country where one of the countries where women are the least free. If the country where I was born, in the country where I was born, the path of my life would have nothing to do with my abilities or my determination, but by the accident. I never stopped fighting to change my own life and also to change society around me, in Africa, but also here in Europe today. I've had many blessings, but I've also been always determined to make the most out of them. I entered politics so that I could offer those same opportunities to others. Now, more than ever, I believe we must lend our voice to those that are struggling and silenced, just like some people lend their voice to women like me. Today, some significant challenges in the years ahead. I categorize these challenges into three broad baskets. First, technology, then autocracy, and equality issues. Technology is transforming our lives, mostly for the better. Imagine this COVID pandemic without satellites and the internet. Without the incredible advancements in vaccine development, we would still have to wait too long for a light at the end of the tunnel. Artificial intelligence is changing our economy and our daily lives, and democracy is enabled by social media platforms, breaking down the barriers and filters between elected representatives and their constituents. But to every positive development, there is also a risk. And with internet platforms, we see the risk that comes with breaking down the filters of traditional discourse. What we have seen on the internet is not just fake news. It's the broader blurring of lines between facts and opinions. No longer do we all share the same basic truth. Truths are contestable and interchangeable. This is a challenge that we see malign states like Russia abuse to meddle in our elections, for example. It has realized Voltaire's saying that if you can get people to believe absurdities, you can also get them to commit atrocities. And social media abuse has led to some serious atrocities, including in Myanmar recently, where it was used to incite genocide. Even in democracies, we saw domestic actors like President Trump deploy in a desperate attempt to delegitimize his own country's elections. What's the solution to this challenge? The solution will come from all of us. It is also based on media literacy. We need to learn to check what we see online, to be critical, and to not believe everything we see just because it fits with our own prejudice. The world is in a battle between the forces of freedom and the forces of autocracy and oppression that we're all fighting. At the end of the Cold War, we thought we'd entered what Francis Fukuyama called the end of history. It was believed that freedom had prevailed over the Soviet Union, but it was not to be. From Russia's aggression in its neighborhood, to its human rights violations against its own people, to its efforts to undermine democracy abroad to sustain its kleptocracy at home, and China's campaign against democracy in Hong Kong and Taiwan, its genocide against the Uyghur Muslims, or its efforts to create economic dependency and division in the free world through strategic investments, to Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, Myanmar, and countries and countless other forces that stand against freedom that we all defend. We must not just take a stand with our words, we must take a stand in our actions, because the greatest challenge to our free world is not the autocrats or dictators. It is our own democratic self-doubt. It is our own silence. We need democratic optimism and confidence. I'm far from optimistic about the future of the free world under President Biden. He will push for democracies to unite, a renewed alliance built on values rather than interest, helping to rebuild the free world so that we can rebuild the multilateral world in a democratic mold where everyone has a voice. It will not be easy, but the fight back for freedom must start now by all of us. Democracy will not prevail if we also fail to tackle the enormous injustices across our society. Inequality of opportunity both within countries and between countries. In the coming artificial intelligence revolution, automation risks leaving people behind. As the industrial world develops, we risk widening the gap between poor countries, a gap that has closed in recent years. People without a stake in society and countries without a stake in the free world will turn to nationalists and politicians who seek to find someone to blame. This political narrative has shown again and again throughout history the dark places that can lead to. So as we enter this brave new world, we must make sure that every person has the opportunity to thrive in it through education, an inclusive economy, and making everyone's voice heard. This must include the voices of the millions of silenced women around the world. The equality of women can only be achieved through inclusions in our classrooms, our boardrooms, our courtrooms, and parliaments, in our job market and our decision-making, but also inside the houses. Finally, we cannot ignore the elephant in the room. The reason why I address you on a screen rather than in person, which I would have loved very much. I believe the ability for all corners of the world and all people to be able to thrive in the future will greatly depend on our vaccine strategy. While we are in the early stages of rolling out the vaccines in Europe, we must not forget that the world will only be safe and equal when everyone has been vaccinated, everyone, and we must work together to achieve this goal. My friends, these are just a few of the opportunities and challenges that we face. And as I said at the start, the world is at an inflection point. So we have a huge opportunity now to do this together. And we must remember that our future is not in the hands or our elected politicians like myself, but that is in the hands of each of us, and each of us has the power to contribute to that change. I hope we will continue staying in touch and working together. Thank you very much.